Well, good morning. Welcome to the Sac County Commissioner meeting. It's Thursday, November 22nd, 10 a.m. We'll open with the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sure.
Tyler, go ahead.
Good, please help. Dear Lord, please help to give us your guidance and wisdom here as we go to discuss business for our county and to discuss issues facing our residents and community. Please help to give us your guidance and wisdom here as we go to discuss personnel, finances, property, and issues facing our great county. Please watch out for those that are defending our freedoms overseas. Please to help us to work together and to see the best in one another and to move our community forward. Amen.
Roll call. We don't want to jump ahead.
Commissioner Paradiso,
Here.
Commissioner Schaaf,
Here.
Commissioner Kirschner.
Here.
Okay, so we'll entertain a motion to accept the digital audio recording of our previous board session, Thursday, November 17th.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Kirschner,
Yes.
Commissioner Schaaf,
Yes.
Commissioner Paradiso.
Yes. Okay, so I don't think we have any appointments today, right? So we'll move on to commissioner reports. Who wants to go first?
Well, briefly, we did attempted to attend the ribbon cutting at the lights at the fairgrounds. It's a good start. Trip way around. I don't know, Bill, did you get out there before the ribbon was cut?
No, Patrick, this is, yeah, right, he was there, and,
Yeah,
I was there 5-10 minutes before. And
Yeah, it's about 10 till when they, it's like, yeah, so.
Yeah, they set the clocks early.
They set it early, so yeah, so.
But anyways, so I mean, kudos to them for giving it a good try, and it's as I say, it's a nice start. I'm sure that things will increase as time goes on. I guess make sure that you guys have a great Family Day Thursday. Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks for representing the commissioners. We text each other. Commissioner Kirchner was able to make it, so thank you. That's appreciated. Anything else?
I think that's it for now.
Okay. Mr. Schaaf?
Yeah, had a busy meeting, or a busy week here so far this week. We had a budget commission meeting this morning. The budget commission did approve the commissioners at an amount of $21.15 million, so we're gonna work within those parameters and hopefully be able to work with everybody here and do what we need to do. Today, 2 o'clock, we have a land bank meeting. Following that, 3 o'clock, we have our facade committee meeting at 3 o'clock. We have 6 to 7 applications to go through, right, Jimmy?
Actually, more than that, it's like pushing 10.
Oh, wow, okay, good. Yeah, they're from all over the county. We've had some from Bloomville, Bascom. I think there's one entered from Republic, Fostoria, Tiffin, so it's been all over the county, so we're pretty excited about going over those. Also, just want to give a big thank you to Barb and Jamie here for what they've done with the budget. I know it's stressful times for everybody and stuff, and we're trying to get this done right, but just appreciate both of you for your hard work and stepping into this here freshly the last few months and just everything you've done, so thank you. Hope everybody has a happy Thanksgiving. Ohio State Michigan game this weekend, so looking forward to that. Go Bucks. Then last thing here, if you're one of the people that goes out after Thanksgiving for Black Friday, try to keep it local. I challenge you to try to support your local stores and shops. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Going to jump right over to the county administrator's report.
All right, so budget, of course, we can talk about that. We do have some issues going on out at the sheriff's office with the air handlers and the boiler system. So waiting to get a cost on what both the short-term and long-term solution for that's going to be. And so I will give you guys that number once that comes in. I think we're having similar issues out at, I think they're different issues, but still air handler and boiler system issues out at the youth center. So trying to get a resolution on what that is going to be as well. So just to give you guys a heads up on that.
Okay.
Still working through the Safe Build contract, sent it over to Derek, he sent back some recommendations. So I reached out to them and to try to get some clarification on that. So I will, hopefully we'll have the contract details and all that stuff for you guys on the 1st. So if you'd like, I guess we could probably jump into the budget.
Let's jump right in.
All right.
You good? Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna get up on the screen here the budget that we have as of the moment, subject to change. We are not presenting that for final approval today. Need to have some discussions. But just so that you guys are aware, budgets for 2023 came in just over 22.1 million, so it was significantly higher than what the original certification of 20.6 is. And up until today, we have been working with that 20.6. So everything that we go off will not be numbers from the 21.15. So with those requests, we did have to make some adjustments. A lot of that was equipment, so some equipment that different departments had requested. We understand those are the one-time thing. Most of the equipment requests that came in were one-time costs, so we took those out. We can look at those in 2023. There were some software requests that we had to take a look at. We feel as if they can come in and discuss those software requests as well. And we had a significant request for wages for 2023 from a good majority of all of our elected officials. So they put priority on their employees this year. A lot of them reduced different lines so that they could increase their wage line. So keep that in mind as we go today. So today we're presenting the budget with no salary increases except for the 1% built into the sheriff's per union contract for what is required for us based on previous negotiations. And so I have the big discussion, I think, for you guys is going to be wages. I'll scroll down to show you what this current budget right now has, if I can get down there. With some adjustments I think that we could make as well. So right now we're looking at 20.9, really basically 21. However, we have a few items here that I think we could probably take out and do a transfer at the end of the year out of our carryover at the end of the year. But we're looking at public assistance that goes to Job and Family Services. I think they requested around $350. But I had spoke with Stacy and she had mentioned maybe $450. They're very careful with that money. If they don't utilize it, they just continue to work off of that. So that could be taken out. And I can show you the bottom number without that if we do that as a transfer versus putting it into the budget. And another one that we've talked about is the contingency line. Several times we put in $500,000 for that. If we do the same thing there and we take that out and do a transfer towards the end of the year, that puts us right around 20
With no raises.
with no increases.
Okay. We'll pause here a minute.
Yep, you guys can go ahead
Okay.
and.
Commissioner Kirchner, you're zipping away over there.
Well, I mean, let's talk about it. We're down to $20,000 of the foster care, children's foster care, $450 makes sense to use that out of carryover because that isn't an ongoing general fund item. The contingency is just what it says it is, and that's a contingency that doesn't need to be budgeted. It's nice to have that, but with the fact that we've been putting money away in budget stabilization funds, that becomes less and less of a concern. Again, based on where you're at, I looked this over the last couple of days, $20 million without any increases. And for every 1%, we're talking about $100,000. I know that's a round figure.
Yeah.
So if we were talking about 5%, we'd be talking about 500,000. So that takes us to 20,500,000 or in that range. 21,150, is that the number this morning?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so 21,150. So you're someplace about 600,000. Above from a certified amount than we are actual expenses. The big questions are whether or not, you want to take 450 on the child foster care fund and move that and pay that out of carryover, and not have the 500,000 contingency for the year. You can still have it, but it's not a line item.
So in the past, I think we've normally moved 450 at the end of the year, right?
Yeah, it's been a range amount, but it has been done both ways previously. I think from what we found, it's been a transfer at the end of the year, or it has been in the budget. So I think we found that it's been done both ways, so
Let's go back to the pay, the 5%
Okay.
thing in a second. We don't have to spend everything we're certified either.
Correct.
That's the first thing. And I also think,
I'd like to have a cushion.
we're committed to capital projects. We have a list, costs are coming in higher. Walk in today, you just presented 2 more things that really aren't on the priority list. The HVAC system at the jail and at the youth center, who knows what that's gonna be. So, back to you on any comments, initial.
One last comment.
Yeah.
And this all is dependent on whether or not we get much pushback from the electeds and department heads on what we've done with their
Underlying
budget amount as opposed to their request, right?
That's right.
As Jamie said, the emphasis seems to be on cutting some areas wherever they can to make certain that staff gets an increase. But there are some significant cuts to request versus what we're going to budget for them. In no case is it less than they had last year from what
Yeah, that's right.
from what I reviewed. But in some cases, it's
So we added a few things back in.
in some cases, it's a significant.
Well, last year was 19.2, so we'll start with that. I see treasurer's in the room, and, we started at 19.2, and we jumped to 20,600,000. That was a 7.3% increase. And now jumping to the 21,150, that's a 10% increase over last year. So at 19.2, electeds could increase their baseline budget. And if we come in at 20 million before raises, there's still 800,000 there to work with, correct? Am I missing something? Based on on certified money last year versus the 20 million this year. So there is an increase. But points well taken. Comments? You good? So, good work. So I guess what you want to do is float this back out to the electeds, and then let's have a little discussion on our employees. I know all of us have, this is important, our people, so. Let's start with the pay raise. We've had 3% forever, and then a 2+1 for 3 years. You threw out a number of 5%. Where'd you get that number at?
Well, it's based, I guess, we can talk about consumer price index, we can talk about
Yeah.
rate of inflation, we can talk about a number of things. But this is based in reality, and by that I mean the lowest requested amount of increases by the electeds and department heads was 5.
Yeah.
We've got some 10s out there, maybe more in some cases. So I think the reality is, you know, is hitting us in the face in that all the numbers, national numbers would indicate that we have to go higher than we have.
I do not disagree with that.
And the fact is that the requests from many of the electeds and the department heads have actually, like I said, cut back certain areas so that they feel as though the increase for staff is important too. And from a practical standpoint, you know, we need to make certain that we retain as many employees as we can. We need to do things for them that the private industry is doing. My research would indicate that, you know, salary increases across the board, across most industries, somewhere north of 5% this year. So I don't know that we have a whole lot of choice. I mean, it would be great if we didn't have to. But the good news is that there's enough money being
You can do it.
generated from sales tax and other areas that we ought to be able to cover it without worried about not balancing the budget. The last thing that I'll say about that is even with the increases at 5%, which I know round figures is 500, it's probably more like 550.
It's like 550, I think.
But that, the contingency that we took out, we still really have, because if we are at 20,500,000 and we've got a
5 or 600.
we got a $600,000 lead.
Your thoughts?
I mean, one of our biggest assets is our employees. I mean, I don't want us to be at the very bottom of the scale as far as compensation goes. Don't necessarily want to be the highest either, but with the turnover the way it is right now and retaining good help, I don't want the county to be a revolving door where we're losing people because of compensation. So we need to figure out what those numbers are. And I'd like to do something that's fair across the board. We got some departments coming in at a 2 or 3% raise, some asking for a 10%, but I'd like to see it kind of the same across the board personally.
The last question I have about raises is, are we still in a contract with the sheriff and the jail to me too?
Yeah,
So that would mean that.
so that would as well.
So it'd be 4% for the jail.
Additional.
And the impact of the budget,
Yeah.
you bake one in.
Is that what?
We have played around with the numbers, and so we've included sheriff with all of those kind of things that we've bounced around, so.
But that number would be much higher than 500 then, right?
That includes them, yes.
It does?
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
Okay, so again, I know it's gonna be more, it's probably 550, I would guess.
yeah.
so we took out, looking at the sheriff's budget, we took out vehicles and some capital. So this is not uncommon, but when we have the money,
We took out some one-time
we don't. But is
expenses.
this, I think this,
Yeah.
you and I talked about this a little bit with Barb, and so we're all, let's just kind of see what everybody thinks. I think this is a philosophy that you've presented, that the commissioners would, since we own the vehicles and the buildings, that kind of thing, we would take the big capital items out of budgets, and we would develop a capital list with vehicles, buildings, et cetera, and address those as separately.
Yeah.
So
So
I
if
think
they're,
that kind of fits, in the end, it's the same thing, only it puts the, they could still request an EMS vehicle or a
yes.
sheriff vehicle or whatever, but, so, what
Well,
we
I mean,
normally do is
right,
take
I
them
mean,
out when we
yeah.
don't have the money.
I don't
Right.
disagree with you at all, but the
So,
plan was, or the development of the plan over the last few years has been relatively simple. And that is, we would have 2 new cars for the sheriff every year, right? To replace the fleet, and try to replace computers and offices
yeah.
on a scale of a couple of
Have a
years.
system.
So everybody has a new computer and that kind of thing. Now, that's kind of gone by the wayside with injection of 3 or 4 new vehicles in 1 year as opposed to 2 every year to keep things going. Now, 2 every year may not be realistic, but it sure seemed to be realistic for a lot of years. And I think that, you know, whether it's 2 or whether it's 3 or whether it's 1, I think that we need to get back to, you guys
A system.
need to get
Regular
back to,
cycle.
you know, a regular basis, so everybody knows in advance that, look, Sheriff, you're gonna get 2 new cars this year. Ambulances, you know, we're gonna replace 1 every 5 years. Whatever the situation
totally
is,
agree
and then stick to it. you know, obviously things happen. You know, somebody wrecks one.
Well, it takes that, you know, frankly, we pulled them out to hit the budget. And this, it was just, we were certified for this, and then it'd be
Well,
March, and we'd
yeah.
come in and we'd have greater revenue than we were certified. Give the Budget Commission credit for getting out of their comfort zone today and certifying an additional 500,000.
Right.
And that was
I mean,
based
right.
on historical data, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, I know that it seems like a 10% increase, but, you know, as Jimmy will tell you, as we looked on actual numbers, and I've looked at actual numbers, the fact is, it's only about a 3 or 4% increase over what we actually took in,
that's right.
okay?
So certified and what we
How
took
much
in.
money are we gonna actually take in 2022?
21.2
number's gonna be
maybe,
some-
is my guess.
Pardon me?
21.2 would be my
Yeah,
guess.
and my guess might be 21.5 based on what's going on, but let's say that it's 21, and we increase next year to 22.1, that's not, you know, that's not that huge a jump given this environment. The point that we make with certification is that we can't budget off of certified amounts if we go through 4 or 5 years when they were 5 to 10% less than actual income.
Yeah.
And so I mean, we have to go off
So
actual.
we stepped it,
Yeah.
which was good. I think it's good. Yeah.
Well, again, I appreciate the discussions about all that, but, you know, if we're off by 100,000 or 200,000 or whatever the number might be, that's certainly within the margin of error, but being off consistently by 5 to 10% makes it very difficult to do the budget.
Comment from you? Okay, so just to summarize this, so I think if you take what you presented, you add 5% across the board, payroll increase for everybody, represent and take out the, we're taking out the contingency for 500, that would not be in for budget purposes, right?
I have that foster contingency, just pulling that out, so we'll go off this
So we
20.
take that, then we would take that out.
And that would be a transfer,
And then you would present a budget next week,
yeah.
and then we have this week to talk more, we can tweak it, we can add something, we can, but we're bringing it down, I think.
Well, they're gonna get some pushback from some of the electeds and some of the department heads, depending on what their conversations are. You may agree with something they have to say or disagree. But, you know, we do have some leeway here, and I would say that the final is probably gonna be somewhere that looks like this, but it's gonna be 200,000 or 300,000 one way or the other.
I think that's fair. Anything else?
Just the OSU extension, we've had that conversation multiple times. I know it's been a topic the last few years. This budget does include that additional 22,000.
I'm good with that, I think we're okay.
So just want to
with it.
make sure that you guys know that that
Oh.
is in there. So,
Okay.
okay. And then the only other thing was talk about Board of Elections, because they did receive that increase in September. It was a significant increase, whether or not we're going to build in another 5% into this budget for them as well. So I think that's something.
What was that
would
increase
like-
again?
I think it was roughly 5% in
Yeah.
September.
Did you talk to them at all about that?
We have not.
I would guess if they're gonna need, I think we'll be okay this year and next year, but I think in '24, they're gonna want some significant money as we approach November.
Budget-wise, their budget was, we had some conversations, some additional follow-up with them. Their budget was good. We had just some numbers that seemed off, but after a conversation, they're good with theirs. I just didn't know wage increases, if that was gonna be included in there, since they did receive that back in September.
Well, that's great, and you know, I mean, I gotta tell you that there have been years when we sat here and we didn't have numbers from the Board of Elections, and we didn't have numbers from the sheriff, and we didn't have numbers from a lot of people, so the fact that we're at this point, that everybody has returned their stuff is a good sign, because it's been struggle in the past.
So my thing with the Board of Elections, that was a, that was a mid-cycle discussion. And I believe it was was a base pay increase, just to kind of reset. Of course, there's a lot of other elections that would, a lot of other departments would like to have that discussion with them for this coming year.
Okay.
We'll see what you recommend, okay? I agree with Commissioner Kirsch, we'll get on a cycle. Yeah, this is good. Any other comment from you?
Did we have an idea of how much we were gonna try to put in budget stabilization this year?
So, that's a good point.
Like to pack a little bit.
Are we
away
good
there?
with the budget? You good with the budget moving forward? Okay, so,
That's, I mean, the budget stabilization fund, you can put in as much or, I mean, the only difference between the budget stabilization fund and carryover is that the money that you put in the budget stabilization fund is restricted only for general operating expenses in the event that X happens, and I'm not sure what X is, in the event that we have a loss of income for whatever reason. So, transferring some of the carryover money to the budget stabilization fund is just basically an entry that prohibits us from using that carryover for general expenses.
so I'm glad you brought that up. Budget's tabled, and now we're basically talking about carryover. And we've had some discussion, I know Jimmy,
It's a 3.6
so
carryover.
the,
10.
8.
so currently, well, as of a month or so ago, we had about $8 million in carryover. We had 3.6 million, which that's dwindled, in ARP money. We had 1.25 in budget stabilization. We had 500,000 in contingency, and we had 750,000 in the capital account. So one of the things that we need to kind of think about and agree on before the end of the year, or at least have a strategy on this, is how much money do we need to have kind of liquid? And if we have a $20 million budget and we keep $5 million that's liquid, and I'll define that next, that would be 90-day supply. And then in the state of Ohio, Jimmy, what's the?
Fiscally healthy.
3 months.
That's 3 months of
Expenses.
revenue,
That's
you're
fiscal
deemed a
health.
fiscally
Yeah.
healthy entity. So that would be for us three things. It would be carryover, which is basically unencumbered general account money. It would be budget stabilization, of which we are allowed to put up to 5% of prior year revenue in. And it would be contingency. Those three funds would be accessible to commissioners. Contingency fund is the most flexible. It's just available for almost anything. So if we looked at $5 million and we put $1.5 million or $2 million in the budget stabilization, and we were there, and we had, $1 million in contingency fund, and we had a couple million or 2.5 in carryover, I think we can then move forward and conduct business based on, and feel good that we have decent cash reserves. And then frankly, we take the rest of the money and we would put it in a capital fund. And we have an ag building, and we have EMS buildings, and we have a museum something, and we have sheriff and youth center. I mean, we don't have to spend it, but when we do have a capital project, we'll look and see what's in there and see if it makes sense. And so I think,
How much was
I
in the
don't know what you think
contingency?
about that, Commissioner, you guys, but those are the three buckets, I think, and if we kind of agree that, and I'm open to what goes into what, but if we had 5 million and we sliced everything above that off and we put it in our capital account, I think we feel pretty good going into next year with our budget. Thoughts?
Well, I'd like to see this budget stabilization fund at $2 million, so that means $750,000, I think, to get it there. I'm a little bit hesitant to put the rest of the money in the capital account, because what that basically says, it's in the checkbook, and anything you want to do, whether it be this panel or whether it be the next panel, it pretty much allows, typically in government, if there's some money available, somebody figures out a way to spend it. I would much rather somehow restrict at least a portion of it. I mean, to come up with what it is that we think are priorities from a capital improvement standpoint. Obviously, there's gonna be emergencies that happen, air handlers and whatever else might happen. And come up with a number that says, okay, we're gonna, kinda like we talked about with the cars, we're not gonna spend any more than X dollars a year on capital improvements, rather than just say we got this pot of money that we can write a check for whenever we wish.
What do you think?
I'd rather practice a little bit of restraint. I'd agree with Mike on that. If you leave it open to too many loopholes, or if it's too easy to get to, future people could spend that right away if they wanted to.
So my initial response is that the capital account is a restricted account, so I would argue that if we put it in the capital account, we have restricted it. You know, we basically, we can just leave it in the general fund. What's our options, right? I mean, we leave 6 million, and 8 million in the general fund, or we leave
Right.
2.5 in the general
Isn't
fund.
it just semantics? I mean, you're setting a target. A budget is a target. It's not what you're spending. You could put it in capital, and then next week you could move it out of capital. So
Right.
it's all semantics. It's really just,
Well, what we're trying to do.
we have a budget we have a capital budget list, priority list, right? Do we want to spend on that? How much do you want to spend? We have some
Get a call.
estimates, right? So,
Well, what we're trying to do is identify the cash we have. And you good? We're waiting for you.
Quiet it up.
We are walking you home. So I think where this discussion's gone, and we can move on, maybe talk more December 1st about it, is, you know, with COVID and with this ARP money and with some better than expected revenue over the last couple of years, we've accumulated some cash. And as you would say, that's one-time cash, and it's not ongoing. You know, those days are gone of, you know, money falling out of trees. So I would just like to, you know, I just opened up the discussion. If we put, and I support putting 2 million in budget stabilization, and then a number in the 3 million range of either carryover or contingency. And then the rest of the money, you can just lay in the checking account, or we would put it in. Now, to your point, if we restricted it in the capital account, we have all these capital needs. And I appreciate in the past, I'll give you the example I just thought of. We had a guesstimate on the ag building at 2.5. And we were gonna move 2.5 over, and Commissioner Kirchner said, well, let's wait till we get the final number and then move it over, which is logical, and that's how we've always done it. What's it cost? We put the money in there, and we move forward. Well, the bid came in at 4.8, so do we not put some money in there, or do we wait till I mean, that's my only question, you know? And if we put X in there, we can't spend more than, we can't build if we don't have the money. I just think it would clean up our balance sheet and make us, as we budget, there's too much money in there, I think it's confusing. So we can talk about that next week.
The budget stabilization, we can't put millions in. I think the last amount when we looked at it, I think it was around 725,000 that we can put in.
it's about 5% of revenues,
But that
right?
would put us at a $2 million.
That
Yeah,
would
let's
put you
face it.
at
You
a
could wait till
little
January
over 2
1st and
million.
that resets.
Because you
Total you can put in there?
Yeah, that's what
You said
per
that's
year.
the total per
That's
year.
what
I know,
I wanna
but
get
it's
it.
5% of the previous revenue.
So if you wanted to do it, you could wait till January.
You could do it again in January,
Gotcha.
absolutely.
It's a lot of
How much was in
semantic
the
talk right now.
contingency fund?
Right now, there's 1.25 million.
I'm okay with taking ARP money or carryover money,
No, that's budget stabilization.
and let's do that.
Oh, sorry.
I think it would be fitting for Commissioner Kirchner, who basically invented the fund, that we
cap it, we put our 2 million in, and we're gonna do it, so let's just do it next week, if that's okay.
Yeah,
I
we'll look at
love
the number,
that
I think
idea.
it's 728.
And then that baby's at 2, and that's great for future generations.
This is just a fun thing I was looking up.
Yeah.
The state has a rainy day fund as well, and what they try to aim for is about 8.5% of the revenue from the previous year. So if you think about what our, the 20 million-ish, we're lining up to be right around that, maybe 10%. So I think that's a good spot for that to be at, right? If
Yeah.
we follow the state's guideline and what they do as well,
We're good with that.
pretty similar.
I'd rather practice a little.
Let's do that, and then we'll table the rest of it as we go here. Bring
We
it up.
will present the non-general fund budget as well for next week in
Okay.
its entirety, and so we will move, we'll talk about the capital improvements as well.
Any other comments?
Just that, we talk about capital improvements, and that really is a bouncing ball, isn't it? I mean, we think we're gonna do one thing,
Good way to
and
put it.
it's like changing tires on a moving car. We think we're gonna do one thing, but a number for that thing comes in much higher than we thought, so we go to another thing. I just want to caution us to make certain that we come up with a plan every year for capital improvements with a maximum amount. Again, just because we have the money doesn't mean that we ought to spend it, but we ought to do what needs to happen for the benefit of the population in different areas. And I think the ag building has been determined to be something that we need to do at some point. So that seems to be the number one focus. We ought to focus on that. I know there are a lot of other things that are happening out there, but we can't do them all at once.
Yep. Do you guys still have that list we worked on where we prioritize projects? Maybe
Yeah.
keep an eye on that, because I'm pretty sure in board you guys said like, hey, let's work on the top 10 of these. Maybe that changes as we get different quotes. We could change the
Yeah, I think we should
prioritization.
update it.
Seems like all those numbers changed.
They did a lot,
drastically.
right? So
That's something
consider that and
we
change
do.
the priorities,
That's-
but
yeah,
we have a list.
Update our whole
It
list.
exists. We
Yeah,
should
we
pay
had,
attention to
we had
that.
one 7 years ago as well that's
That's right.
pretty much gone by the wayside.
We'll update it and
Yeah.
we'll freshen the next year, and
Awesome.
then that'll include vehicles, that kind of thing.
Love it, yeah.
And
One thing I've learned in local government, prices never seem to go down on anything.
It'll never be cheaper than it is right now.
Yeah, but I mean, remembering that period of time, again, we gotta remember what we've done in the past so we don't repeat things, and gotta remember whose shoulders we're standing on here. But, we've, over the past 8 years, we built the courthouse. That was pretty big. That was a pretty big fund. I had to move the prosecutor. That was pretty big. Moved the Board of Elections. That was pretty big. Moved regional planning into that office. That was pretty big.
Parking
Took
lots.
care of the Parks District. That was pretty big. Did bunches of remodeling and roofs, et cetera, out at the sheriff's office and different places. That was pretty big. So there are, I don't know how much money we spent over the last 4 or 5 years, but it's significant. Taking the courthouse out, it's still in the millions.
just so the taxpayers are aware, the commissioners, we did get new chairs. So we were able to get that. We were frugal with here.
I didn't see that request.
Mine broke, so we had
Did it really?
I'm sitting on a cardboard box.
Yeah.
Okay, Jamie, thank you. Move on to new business, please.
All right, so first we have our supplemental appropriations. We have one for general special projects, Fund 1193 to contract services for $1,600. That is to pay for the MHRS for grant reporting. We have a Workforce Investment Act Fund 2066 to contract services for $40,000. Foreclosure Special Projects, Fund 1168 to special projects for $1,000. The next three are sheriff requests from general fund to food and kitchen for $25,000. That is to get them to the end of the year for food supplies. They also have a supply request for $3,200 for inmate clothing until the end of the year. And then $34,710. The 10 cents is going to the sheriff salary line. There was just a calculation correction that needed to be made. They are short in the PERS, so that's 19,700 going into PERS. And then supplies, they have a request for $15,000 for fuel to get them through the end of the year. And I do know Barb had went out and met with Lex, so if you guys have questions, Barb might be able to cover a little bit closer those numbers.
I have a question. So do you want to finish doing them or save questions?
I could
for the
do,
end?
it's up to you.
Go ahead and finish doing. I'll save.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
I have a reduction for the Victims of Crime Act grant 2110 for $14,242.99. That's just the grant year end, which ended September 30th. That's for salaries, Medicare, workers' comp, hospitalization, contract services, software leases, travel, and other expenses, for the total of $14,242.99. There is an appropriation adjustment to the Children's Services Fund 2078 for assistance to services for children for $50,000. And then I have the resolutions, authorizing the amendment to the 4D service contract between the Seneca County Common Pleas Court 2, the Clerk of Courts in Seneca County on behalf of the Seneca County Department of Job and Family Services. There's a change order for the contract with Smith Paving and Excavating for the Village of New Regal, Ohio sidewalk replacement project to be paid with CDBG for the processing year of '21. Entering into a contractor agreement with Clean Team and authorizing Anthony Paradiso, President of the Board, to sign. We have authorizing matching funds from Seneca County for the Regional Mental Health Feasibility Study. Take your questions.
For the Clean Team contract, did we bid that out?
So that
Did we open or ask
is,
for bids?
we are, we currently have them. That's actually waiting Derek's approval right now, so I believe that, is it in there?
Yeah, it's in there.
Okay.
How long is that contract?
I think we can terminate within 90 days. I think we just need notice of that. So that is, we currently have them doing some of our buildings, and we are no longer, we have a housekeeper that's retiring at the end of the year, so we needed them to pick up the additional buildings that housekeeper was completing.
And then on the general fund for the sheriff for food and kitchen, 25,000 request, was there any monies moved in or out of that throughout the year?
Oh, yeah, there's been money moved. I don't have it with me, but yes, there has been money moved in, into and out of that.
Well, I think the analysis has been made about a number of different situations as far as maintenance goes, that the net effect of cost is significantly less by using a third party than it is by having a full-time employee.
I just wondered if we advertised for that bid or not, because I know there were some people that had asked me when the contract's up, and nobody seemed to know.
They're our current, they're doing our current, so we're just adding to that.
So when it's up, when the current contract's up, then.
Yeah, so it's a 90-day written cancellation.
I think the answer to that, Tyler, if it's 90 days, notice on any part, anybody could come in and bid anytime they wanted to, or at least come in and request that, I'll take a look.
Okay.
Jimmy?
I might have forgot from last week, and I'll need this for the post-meeting press release. The mental health feasibility study, the facility, you guys talked about that last week, right?
I want to make comment on
We
it.
didn't put a cost out there, we didn't talk about the cost share, who we're partnering with. Can we get more details on that?
Yeah, so I'm going 360 on this. At one point, I was gonna remove it from the agenda.
Actually, it's 180.
180.
Is it a full circle or a half circle? Are you back around?
Because I was for it. And then now I'm for it again, yeah. Okay, whatever that is. I
Yeah.
am, yeah,
Oh.
actually. So what happened there is, we had a meeting yesterday, solid waste budget meeting. So Commissioner Stahl from Ottawa County, Commissioner Zimmerman from Sandusky County, Mirsha came over from mental health. Obviously, we're aware that he represents Ottawa, Sandusky, Seneca, and Wyandotte. Also, yesterday I had communication with our sheriff So I was having mixed feelings about this, but basically where we're at is, and everyone's, the parties I've mentioned are in supportive of it, okay? So we're asked to spend $2,000 now with Sandusky County and Ottawa County, and we are going to apply, we would be applying for a $500,000 grant to do this feasibility study. We had a letter that we all signed way back that was directed to the Department of Corrections, and they said this was an approved, this study would be approved, it's competitive, it's not a guarantee thing. We just feel that getting this out in the open, talking to CCAO, the Sheriff's Association, representatives, Mirsch is on top of it. It's complex, so billing is different in correctional facilities than in mental health facilities, and how do you define it, and how do you pay for it? So we have a lot of questions, but the concept of a regional facility to help house our population is much needed and warranted. So if we're successful, here's the fine print, we would pay $2,000 to apply in all 3 counties. If we're successful, then we're asked to each throw in $50,000, so that would be $150 total. The grant would be $350. There'd be a $500,000 study. We wanted to make it very clear, and I think we feel good about this, so that's why I'm speaking the way I am. This is not a bricks and mortar feasibility study. This is a study on the need and partnering and how can we address this, because the costs are just going to continue to go up. So we have to figure out a way to unpack this. We may not get the grant. If we get the grant, we may do the study. We may have a dead end because we can't afford it or it doesn't make any sense. It's possible. We have a study and we invite other counties in. Huron County,
Yeah.
Wood County, Hancock, Wyandotte, they're all potentially, Wyandotte would be they're part of the mental health district. They would be, Huron's already expressed interest, which would lower the cost. So I'm asking that, we talked about yesterday, I'm asking that be included in here. Unless we object, then that'll be part of the business. Did that help you out, public? Okay. Let's take action on this and have a couple of comments. Want to entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept the new business, the supplemental appropriations and resolutions as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call?
Commissioner Kirchner,
Yes.
Commissioner Shaw,
Yes.
Commissioner Paradisi.
Yes. So 180 versus 360.
Well, you did do a 360.
I did a
You came back
360.
to where you was.
Yeah.
I'm getting busy.
Now I'm confused.
I know,
Because the
yeah,
last
I
thing
thought-
I knew, we weren't gonna do anything.
Well, we weren't, because I had cold feet, but after, and others expressed the same. So that said, so at 2 o'clock today, you're.
All right, is there any chance we could use the opiate task force settlement money?
All that.
Fund
yeah.
any of that?
Not the study, but the long-term solution, yes. Yeah, yes, that's all right. You're going to 2 o'clock today?
Yeah, actually, I'm not gonna read the resolutions, but you mind if I just say something?
Acknowledge, yes.
Yeah, so today at 2 o'clock, I'll be heading to the Willows here in Tiffin. We have a World War II veteran, Robert Putnam, having a 100th birthday today, so I'll be there on behalf of the commissioners. Quite the resume this gentleman had, not here today, but I'm gonna go present this resolution to him and honor this individual, 'cause I mean, quite the accomplishments and just quite a life of service, and I'll be there on behalf of us, so.
So land bank, you're good at 2?
Yep.
I may have a conflict, so you got it
I'm here
covered.
for land bank, yeah.
We're going to meet, let's just talk calendar because holidays and everything, I just want to make sure for public. So we have a meeting on December 1st, next Thursday, then we have a meeting on December 13th. We're splitting the difference of those weeks because we'll be out of town. And then
our next scheduled meeting would be the 22nd on a Thursday and/or the 29th. You know, I'm thinking right now we would want to hold a meeting on the 29th just for cleanup.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that okay with,
Well,
And
yeah, I
then-
mean, my suggestion.
I'm asking you, yeah.
My suggestion would be that we meet that week on the 27th and hold the 29th open. And the reason that I say that is because we're gonna, whatever we do on the 27th, the auditor, et cetera, may need to do certain things to get through the end of the year, give
Okay,
us 3 or
so-
4 days.
Can I say that this way? Okay, so let's have let's schedule a meeting for the 27th and the 29th.
I think that would be good.
And then we will not have a meeting Christmas week. So December 1st, 13th, 27th, 29th.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
And then we're around for year
You
end.
say 13th?
Yeah. Does that work for you, Mr. Chef, right here?
I know I'm gonna be out of state for a wedding, I'll make it work, but
Yeah.
Why are we, I'm sorry, why are we changing from the 15th to the 13th? I didn't get that.
We're going to be,
CCAO.
So we,
okay,
Oh, that's when you're
CCAO
down.
Winter
Oh,
Conference.
okay, I got it, yeah,
Yeah,
I
so the
remember
week
that.
before, so we
Got
thought
it.
meeting Tuesday would
actually-
help get the business.
well, we're going to comment, so on Wednesday night, there's an annexation meeting. This is very important, actually, to bring up for the public. So the Fostoria, Jackson, Loudon annexation meeting is held on the 7th. That will get, the purpose of that meeting is to extend the contract, right? So Ellie and everybody, that's going to be a good group. After the meeting, all entities need to meet. So on the 13th, we will meet as commissioners to ratify, do what we need to do. The city of Fostoria will meet on the 13th to do what they need to do. The township, Hopewell has a meeting, I believe, they help me out on that, Bill, I think it's the 14th, it's the 13th or 14th. Roger Holman confirmed it. Steve Nader has COVID, but we're trying to get them to commit to their Jackson Township having a meeting. Then the agreement will be in full force, and Ohio Logistics, we can get that annexed in and make that all work. So we could have kept our meeting on the 15th and then gone 2 weeks without a meeting, but we moved it to the 13th
Got
to
it.
accommodate them and keep that kind of going. And so that's the reason for that, but we're here all week.
Got
And then I like that better this week, because there's always something.
The 29th, we may not have to have, but it's good to have it
Yeah.
scheduled.
Okay, and then, so that takes care of the calendar.
Can you just recap that real quick for the listeners at
Okay,
home? Just
so
what are
the
the,
month of
what's the
December,
schedule
we-
for?
we have
we've changed
4
a lot.
meetings scheduled
Okay.
for the
just
month of
name them all.
December. December 1st,
Okay,
December 13th, December 27th, and December 29th.
maybe, right.
Maybe.
Okay, just making sure. We've changed it a lot in the last month.
Yeah, no,
so
that's fair.
I want to
Right.
make sure that people understand.
Right. And we will have to do that, so next year we'll get out in front of this a little bit, because after COVID, after 3 years now, we're back on the CCAO.
Right.
That's
Gotta
gonna
go
be
out.
something that we'll wanna do every year.
Yeah, normally that'll just be probably a change to a Tuesday or, yeah.
And frankly, we've gone, the budget has been the last minute, and so nice job to everybody, including the electeds, everyone really, that was part of this, to get everything in and
So you have to have your first meeting of the year
the
on the
fifth.
second Monday. You might want to schedule that while you're
Yeah.
doing scheduling, make sure Bill can get, that's when you do all your appointments, et cetera.
The
Yeah,
reorg.
so when would that be, Jimmy? On
9th.
Yeah.
the fifth?
Ninth.
To the fifth?
December.
The second
Did
Monday?
you say second Monday be the 9th?
Well, we can have it before
It
that.
has to be done by the second.
We can do it this fifth, what's that Thursday, the fifth?
The fifth, yeah.
I think we're gonna
Do the reorg.
Bill, can you make it?
I'll put her on the calendar.
Okay, so that's good. So our first meeting next year will be the 5th. And then maybe, Jamie, you can look at the calendar and with holidays and everything. And
What's a little different, because you're going to want to look at those appointments and see who's going to go where.
Good.
So someday I'll be you. I'll be the senior guy up here.
Yeah.
And as I'm going off, I'll be able to.
You will be.
All the young
You will
guys.
be January 1st.
Yeah, and we're gonna miss you. Okay.
One thing that we didn't talk about,
You're up.
Commissioner, is, Kylie, I may need your help on this. We did have an airport planning meeting. What day was
Oh,
that,
yeah.
Monday?
Yeah.
We had it on Friday.
Friday? Lose track of time. And one of the things, first of all, it was good conversation, but there is some additional monies available. And I don't know that if we needed to get Great Lakes Community Action on or not. They did say that there was some terminal improvement money that was out there to be had. And I didn't say anything to Brad on the phone during that conversation, but, you know, if there's some money, some grant money out there from the FAA, we ought to at least look at it to see if Brad needs anything. I can't believe there wouldn't be something he would like to get done out there.
That was a good meeting.
And it looks like we are, accelerating some of the things that we want to do, maybe getting them done sooner. One of these days, we're going to extend that runway. We've been talking about that for a decade
Or longer.
or longer.
Actually, I was flying in 1987. We were talking about it then.
It's a long.
I was 2 years old.
Yeah. So I started flying. Okay, so public comment, anyone in the room? Any comment? Good to see you. Paul Harrison, thank you for a good year. Everything you've done, we're gonna reap the rewards of the investment income next year.
Hopefully.
But as we all know, what goes up will come down at some point, but thank you. Public comment, Mike Ditto, anybody?
Yep, I have opened up the lines. If you're joining us on Zoom and you want to speak during public comment, you can go ahead and do that now.
We good?
We're good.
Okay, under an hour. Hearing none, meeting adjourned.